If you've seen any of my videos, you've probably noticed that I love to see movies with truly meaningful, organic character transformations. I also love it when I feel a twinge of emotion by the end. The Reluctant Royal certainly has the capacity to do both. Now, the male lead was played by Andrew Walker, and while generally I find him enjoyable to watch, I can't deny that I wasn't impressed by two of his movies last year. For Love and Honey and Jingle Bell Run, both did just fine for Hallmark, but personally, those movies weren't among my favorites, so I really wanted to like this one. It's quite a twist on a classic Cinderella story. And yes, I do love a good Cinderella story. Ever After with Drew Barrymore is one of my all-time favorites. But as I was starting to mention, in The Reluctant Royal, it's not the female lead whose life is transformed by becoming royalty. This time it happens to him.
Don't worry, beautiful. I'll get you running in no time at all.
So how was it? I don't know about you, but I can't wait to talk about this one. So let's dive right in and get started. Hi, I'm Stephanie, and welcome to the Magical Movie Club. This month, Hallmark Channel aired the premiere of The Reluctant Royal, starring Andrew Walker and Emilie de Ravin. Now, I mentioned Andrew Walker a moment ago. He has made so many movies for Hallmark, he probably doesn't need much of an introduction. I loved him in The Curious Caterer Mysteries, not to mention Three Wise Men and a Baby. But this, I believe, is Emilie de Ravin's debut on the network. However, speaking of princesses, I enjoyed her as Belle from Once Upon a Time. Now, this movie opens in a garage where we see Andrew Walker's character Johnny underneath an old Mustang when his girlfriend walks in.
We need to talk.
She breaks up with him because he's not ready to make any kind of commitment.
I'm just not quite there yet.
Now, I'd say Johnny has three great loves: working on cars, hanging out in bars, I did not mean for that to rhyme, and juicing of all things.
But this is a bar. Nobody wants juice.
Next, we transition over to this stunning castle over in England. Actually, I think it was filmed in Ireland, but England is what was mentioned in the movie. And this is where we meet Prudence, Emilie de Ravin's character. She's the advisor to the Duke of this estate. Now, he's a bit cranky.
Don't you mean the old crust?
The taxes are apparently overdue, and he has no direct heir. So already I'm seeing some similarities to Downton Abbey come into play, which makes me so happy.
As you know, on your death, the heir to the title inherits everything.
In this movie, though, there's a bit of a twist, because his closest relative has been planning on inheriting the title his entire life. Only he's not exactly the warm and fuzzy type.
He's a title chaser.
We'll get to him later. Prudence sits down to start putting his affairs in order, and that's when she discovers a document that she knew nothing about.
Marriage.
Which is also how Johnny ties into all of this.
Surprised isn't quite the word.
What is the word?
Gobsmacked.
So Prudence flies to Philadelphia to meet with Johnny and hopes to escort him back to England.
So why would this Duke of wherever want to see me?
When she explains to him that he's next in line to succeed the Duke, he wants nothing to do with it.
The Duke. He's your father.
So how or why exactly does he change his mind? Well, he talks to his mom to find out more about this Duke, aka Dad.
But he said he wanted to get away from all that.
Apparently not.
And she convinced him to go and meet him.
See this part of yourself, even if it's a small part.
My only nitpick here is he's never been out of the States, and yet he was able to fly out, presumably within a day or two.
First time in our village?
First time out of the States.
Oh.
Which means he already had a passport and nowadays even a travel visa. Anyway, before he arrives at the castle, there are a couple more characters we have yet to meet. Cousin Alistair is currently the next in line to inherit the duchy.
Time comes that Prudence will stay on as my advisor.
And of course, once we meet his mother, it's all that much easier to understand his character.
I prefer the East Wing, where I usually stay.
So, Johnny arrives unexpectedly and stirs things up a bit. What I loved was the way he made his grand entrance without actually making an entrance.
That is the next Duke of Classic.
Sadly, though, he entered the castle with some preconceived ideas of what the Duke and everyone who lived here must be like, which was not exactly kind.
Out yachting about, he's driving his Jaguar.
Although not entirely untrue. Granted, they had their own opinions of Johnny, too.
Can you imagine someone like that in a place like this?
So finally, Johnny and the Duke meet.
Or if you prefer, William Charles Edward Henry, Duke of Classic.
The Duke, however, assumed that he was only there for his money,
So if it's money you're after, I'm afraid you've come for naught.
and that didn't go over well with Johnny at all.
Judgmental, condescending, arrogant, self-centered.
Johnny storms out wanting absolutely nothing to do with the duchy. But before he leaves the grounds entirely, he gets a glimpse of an old car that's been stored away, completely neglected for a long, long time. Next, he finds his way over to a pub called the Pickled Pickle, where everyone makes fun of royalty, but that doesn't keep Prudence away.
How are you finding our fair village?
I'm finding your fair village quite lovely.
So, how exactly does she convince him to come back? How about a game of darts? Her last throw was a little bit over the top, but I won't dwell on that. That dart game sort of turned a corner for these two. For the next part of the movie, we learned more about the estate,
15,000 acres, mostly farmland.
its history,
The Duke's father, your grandfather, squandered what was left of the family money.
Prudence, and the Duke himself.
His Grace doesn't charge us a penny. Never has.
Did I mention the cousin?
Alistair Covington Breed of Winshire, north of Devon.
Actually, if Cousin Alistair hadn't been such a horrible character and treated Johnny so badly this whole time,
How refreshing to have a trade.
he might have stood a chance at inheriting the duchy. But Johnny could only be pushed so far.
I've had a change of heart. I'm in.
But do you think Alistair will stop there? No, he's going to make one last-ditch effort to send Johnny packing back to Philly.
I assure you that Philistine from Philly will be back under a car before the week is up.
And how about Johnny? Will he have any regrets?
Well, I think I might have taken it a step too far.
Well, I'll let you watch it to see how it all plays out.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
So now, what did I think of this movie? I loved it. There were parts of the movie that reminded me of Cinderella, as I had mentioned before. After all, it's about a mechanic who becomes a duke. There were parts that reminded me of Downton Abbey with the setting and the characters. And there were parts that reminded me of the Disney movie Cars. You see, in that movie, Lightning McQueen shows up in Radiator Springs unexpectedly. He doesn't like the town and they don't care much for him either. But by the end of the movie, they not only learn to appreciate and respect each other, but their lives are all transformed for the better. And that's exactly what happened here.
It seems to me I've been given a second chance.
And to top it off, what would a Cinderella story be without a ball? What's different about this one, though, is I got goosebumps when his mom arrived.
Pleasure.
That was one of the best moments for me. Or was it this one?
Not quite.
Or no, maybe it was this one here. The point is, everyone's lives were transformed for the better because Prudence found him and she never once gave up.
You agreed to stay through the ball. A bet's a bet.
So what about you? Do you have a favorite scene in this movie? Maybe it was the very end, the way they tied in a reference to the royal we from last week, as well as royal-ish coming up next week.
Your cousin Henry's in love with an American girl. He's going to give her biscuit as a present.
Or perhaps this just wasn't to your liking this time. So what kind of a rating do I give this one? A 5 out of 5, definitely. I know the greedy cousin and his mother were super annoying and overdramatic.
Touch me, mother.
But that was kind of the whole reason for their being there. I'll admit I probably would have directed them a little bit differently, but it didn't change the way I feel about the movie or all of the other characters. They were wonderful. The village, everyone.
We're not going. Who wants to be around a bunch of stiffs anyway?
On IMDb, I would love to see it closer to a 7.5. Right now, it's sitting at a 7.1, which is still really, really good for Hallmark movies. Getting past a 7 is no small feat, and that's 2 royal movies in a row that met that challenge. I'm pretty excited about that, even if I personally felt that this one was better. Well, I think that wraps up my review of The Reluctant Royal. Next, we'll be discussing the third movie in the series, so to speak. It's called Royalish, starring 2 people I have never seen on Hallmark, Nicole Sakura and William Moseley. Now, the only time I've seen William Moseley is from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when he was much younger and played the oldest brother, Peter, so I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of fresh faces on the network. Until then, and as always, thank you so much for being a part of the Magical Movie Club. If you like this too and want to see more, please let me know by hitting the like button and subscribe to the channel. As always, I have links to the preview video as well as the movie page for more details about The Reluctant Royal in the description below. I'll be back next week to chat more about our favorite magical movies.
10 things to do with a napkin ring.
I can think of 11.